All right. All right. Anybody has any difficulty hearing me or has a difficulty with anything else, just give me a holler. As you've already surmised, I am not there with you tonight. I am in Florida. So, I think things are going to work out all right. We'll give it a try and we'll see how things roll on. Let's get back to simple items of business. I assume everybody received the minutes from January and had a chance to read them. I'd like to get a motion to accept the minutes. Okay. And is there any discussion about the minutes? Any changes? Anything of note from anybody? All right. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes? Got it. Anybody opposed? Okay, minutes are approved.
Was that the vote? That was
Minutes are approved unanimously. All right, we can roll right on now, getting into our business. I see Officer Winkle is here, and I'm gonna share a screen as he's getting set up here. What he sent me. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Officer Winkle. If you don't know who I am the North District Community Officer. My boss, Sergeant Garcia, is in the back. So really, when it comes to your CAC, you are the model of consistency. There's very little difference in your crime numbers. Here or there, you're dealing with 1-2 calls for service or 1 or 2 incident reports, and then the next thing you know, you get 3 the next month. Of course, everything jumps up 50%, just the way the numbers go. So there's nothing really ultra concerning as far as the past 30 days, as far as your crime stats go. Things that I do want you to kind of keep an eye on was that there were 6 residential B&Es in the CAC. So we're hitting that springtime, we're hitting springtime clean. So this is a great time for you to trim your bushes down, trim your tree limbs up. Good rule of thumb is bushes 2 foot, tree line 6 feet. You want to have a visual sight. Uh-oh, something's going on. Amber alert, everyone.
Everybody join in. Works.
So trim your bushes. Generally, rule of thumb is that you want to have at least 1 window view from each level of your house viewable from the street. You want your door. Street number, house numbers, those are terrific help for us, especially for me who's still learning the district. Those are huge helps. Tools, keep those secure. Say your landscape stones, those are nice tools to enter house, so make sure that they're fixed into the ground. Those are just basic rules of thumb that I like to push out there. Motor vehicle thefts, we had 7 in your CAC. By CAC standards, that's relatively low, but as far as I'm concerned, that's 7 too many. It's very easy for the key fob just to sit it in the cup holder and forget about it. Keep track of your inventory of what you take into your car and make sure you leave your car with that, and double check your locks. That's just, as soon as somebody gets a hold of a car, that just opens up the whole city to crime, and just an absolute crime wave happens. So please secure your vehicles. One thing to note is about the next time we're going to meet National Poison Prevention. One of the topics that they talk about is opioid abuse. In your CAC, over the last 28 days, you had 2 overdoses. That's just in your own CAC. You go district, citywide, it is just an absolute pandemic. So much so that officers are carrying 1 to 2 Narcan. inhalers with them almost at all times. Probably good to distribute 1 or 2 every quarter. And I spent a lot of time talking to some of the residents out there. Usually the case is that they started on prescription drugs. Generally, it was a high school sports injury or an automobile injury right around that high school age. So really talk to your family members about prescription abuse. Do you have some left over? Just dispose of it. Get rid of it. Don't hold on to it for the next time or just in case somebody else gets injured, because you just don't know how that body chemistry is going to react. So please have that discussion for us. That can really help us out, help our friends in the fire and EMS out as well. So with that, I will turn it over to any specific questions you may have.
Just wondering.
It's typically daytime. Yes, because typically people are not home. They don't want to call somebody. Occasionally we'll get some nighttime, but the majority of them are actually right between 9 and 11 a.m. It can be various items. They can take unsecured firearms, they can take electronics, take jewelry. I strongly urge people, in the springtime to take an inventory of what they have, take pictures, put it in flash drive, put it in the safe. So if something does happen, especially if they're heirloom pieces that you just really can't replace, you have a picture of it for us. That's something that our detectives can work on as far as checking pawn shops. I remember one case very early in my career, an officer had them draw a pendant, and they actually circulated that in the district, and the officer made a traffic stop and they found the pendant sitting on the passenger seat. So pictures are 1,000.
I see Christina Jones has a question.
Thank you so much. I just have 2. Thank you so much for being there, and thank you for mentioning the opioid pandemic that we're going through. I sit on the Substance Use Advisory Commission, and if you do have those leftover prescriptions that we want to get rid of, we actually have a date in April, and I will get it back to you because the date has slipped my brain, of a medicine drop-off medication, because you can't just throw them. Please don't just flush those. Please don't do that. And I can get that date so that you can advertise that, because we'd love to. I think we got over 400 pounds of medication last year, so we want to make sure that we're getting those not needed medications. But a question that I do have is, what is the age bracket? And if you already answered it, I'm so sorry. But of the people that you are having to administer Narcan to, what is the age bracket?
I would say it would go from 20s to mid 40s, 50s. So it's a pretty huge bracket. And it really kind of depends on where I'm at in the city. If I'm working downtown, I'm going to say it's right around that 30-year-old age. North side, it's actually fairly young, people in their early 20s.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you so much for that. And then I just wanted to highlight that you guys had a graduation last week for police cadets, and that was a fantastic ceremony. I was very honored to be there. But I was wondering how many your district precinct are going to be joining you. How many new recruits?
6.
You guys got 6. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, I just wanted to make sure people saw that and that they knew that you guys got some new recruits. You have some new blood in there over in your district. But thank you always for the work you do. I appreciate it.
We do have warrants issued for the suspect.
What's the hall?
Yes.
The hall, is that shooting?
Yeah, it's like behind the Denny's. down. Not around here. Yes, but there was, we developed suspect information like right away. So I think once there was, we're trying to decide if he was a juvenile or if he was 18. Yeah, he was 18. I suspect that arrest will be dangerous.
Whitney?
Yes, so I want to make one comment and then I've got a question. I've noticed that around 9 o'clock out there in Glenwood South that they sort of reroute the traffic there crosswise and put the cones out. I think it was a tremendous improvement out there. I mean, it really seems to be working really good. My question is this, how many active police officers do we have right now in Raleigh?
I want to say it probably puts us 700, maybe.
Okay,
I think we'll be pretty close to fully staffed once the guys that graduated, guys and girls that graduated this past Friday and then this next academy. I think that will put us really close to our max at 855. But we're going to be having a slew of retirements over the next like year and a half. So I think within 2 years we should be pretty close to our max. And then the chief can ask for more officers.
okay, thank you.
Panhandling in the middle of the road is against city ordinance to stand in the right of way with the intent to approach vehicles for anything in those valleys. That is the city ordinance. I talked to everyone. Every one of them has a story. Every one of them gets an education. You have to weigh the consequences. It is a misdemeanor. It's something that you can arrest for. But if you arrest somebody for panhandling, that's taking out of service for at least 2 hours, just for the whole process, taking to the jail, fingerprinting, photographing, and taking to the manager. So you have to weigh the pros and the cons. I typically follow the education rule, advise them of the actual city ordinances, see if they have any chance of resources that they need to be tied into in order to put them to the aid or to address crisis through outreach and networking services. And then I take note of that. Next encounter, I'll issue them a citation, put in the citation that they used. And that point it becomes a matter of pick up the case. And then after that, if I have a third or fourth encounter, then I have to take enforcement action. So it's just kind of a progressive of that. I don't know if that answers your question. That's how I handle it. That's how I encourage other officers to handle it. Yeah.
Do not give them.
I have never had a supervisor. I've never had a lieutenant. I've never had a captain. I've never had a major. I've never had a chief say, do not cite, do not arrest me. I've never had that. They typically are happy with the way I approach it. Policy says, take the least intrusive means of enforcement. I think it's the point across. That's our policy. So that's, if you follow that, you should be. Yes, sir.
We've got the type of ingenuity southwest. We have a fellow stands up on the sidewalk and he has a pole with cotton candy.
Yes.
Yeah, and he sells cotton candy, and every day you start out with about 20 or 30 plastic bags of cotton candy, and people stop, and he walks out and does it. And that's
So I would approach that a little bit differently. There's like a peddler's license that he would have to have. And then that's the way that I would approach that guy.
You mentioned that you should not give them money. Is that because it encourages? I'm not a tenant. This fellow that I see all the time in the same place, and I feel so sorry.
That's right. The thing that we encourage is don't support that action. Because what happens is and actually, Officer Winkler and I are in the process of developing a project that once we start, it's gonna be to conduct that education, the warning, the education, and then the enforcement aspect of this in the North District. It's where we work. And it's getting out of control. I mean, and I drive of course, my personal car to work sometimes, and literally I'm at the intersection and there's people walking between the lanes at the intersection, asking for money, and I said, I got to the office, I said, we have got to do something about this. And a quick story is there is a literally a group of people that they have done to assignment where they hold this really sympathetic sign of a baby needing surgery. And it's a large group of them. And they just have the story that they write, but it's not spelled correctly. And once you get close to the picture's fake and it's not real. And then we encounter them and say, who's the baby, or it's a friend, who's your friend? I don't know. It's a friend of a friend of a friend, and they need surgery back in Romania and back in in Europe and all these other countries. What? Well, they had jars, large jars. It had to be this big, full of money, 20s and 10s and 5s, because they just tug at your heart, right? You see the picture, like, oh my gosh, and we just, as kind people, we want to help. But it's 10 of them, and there are 4 each corner, and then you go to the next corner, there's 4 there, and they get dropped off, they get picked up, and they go to the hotel, and they do it again and again and again, and they're basically being pushed from district to district, and we are kind of, fighting this constant cycle. When they come back to our district, we stop them, and they go to another district. So but they make hundreds to thousands a week, and just by standing there and,
I had
If
a
you wanna-
funny experience. There was a man that had his family, 2 children and his wife.
Mhm.
We were sitting on side, and he was playing the violin. It was
Right.
beautiful.
oh yeah,
And so I stopped to give him $1. I can't remember if it was his wife was playing or he was playing.
Mhm.
And they were on the other side of my car and I couldn't reach.
right.
So they came up to the car. The music kept.
Oh, yeah.
going.
Yeah. They'll be there with the kids and the baby cat. I mean,
It was
Yeah.
recording.
If you really want to help that portion of our population out, socks. It sounds really weird. Socks. They can use socks. If you ever seen Forrest Gump, change out your socks. They need socks. That if you are going to hand anything out, hand out socks, or find a group that you can get the socks that can get them to the public.
Yeah, well, how much damage is going to be out of the
Yes. Camping in the city of Raleigh is illegal on city-owned property. It's on private property, then we have to get zoning and inspections involved to see if there's any type of violation of that. If the property owner does not want them there, we can assist them with putting the notice to vacate out. Once the notice to vacate is posted, it's up to the property owner to dispose of whatever is left behind.
So it's gonna move,
Yes.
so that's okay. But the thing is that trespassing, which is to be arrested between we have these crimes here. Have you noticed any relationship between any fingerprinted or any people that have done misdemeanors? This used to be the windshield wipers of New York City, where they. Are you all doing the similar things?
I think the crimes that I've kind of seen associated with the big hitters in the camp are typically substance abuse crimes and crimes against merchants and shoplifting. Those are where typically what I see. That's again another project that's on our radars to address, you know, the crimes against virgins. So it's a tough cycle for a growing city. It's a city known all up and down the East Coast and also as far as Indianapolis as a city that's kind-hearted with resources. So it's just one of those things that we're dealing with growth, and we're having to deal with.
I can't see. Are there any more questions from the audience?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one more coming in.
There is not a, that's. Okay.
Okay,
They
I have-
want to because of the right to carry government, but I was just like, there's a reason. It just simply is 110 degrees there, but there was 0, and it's the same neighborhood as we're talking.
we're having a hard time hearing the audience.
Can you just kind of summarize what
My
this is?
question would be, if you're on somebody's property and it's not posted. Are you in fact violating? I don't think so.
So it's one of the rules that we follow. Bob, and I don't know if you heard it, it was, you know, is there, if it's not posted trespassing, are you violating a law? So general rule of thumb is if a Girl Scout can walk up and sell Girl Scout cookies, law enforcement kind of has a place to be there. If it's an open field, we have kind of the right to do a check on welfare. You know, but as far as like enforcement, there's a no trespassing sign. If it's not posted, I don't know if I can enforce it. You know, there's, you know, I need, and
Yes.
even if there's a no trespassing sign, I have to have consent to enforce it as well. So,
My turn. Anybody else in the audience?
see y'all next month.
Thank you.
Wait a minute, I've got a question for you. Officer Winkle, 2 things. One, if you've probably noticed on Nextdoor, there's a lot of confusion about Quail Hollow Drive. I've corrected several people that it's not our Quail Hollow Drive. It's down closer to the Beltline and Navajo Drive. But can you speak to the shootings that are going on in that area?
That is an active investigation. So as far as the actual investigation portion, I cannot discuss that. But I can say that there is a person of interest, there is an arrest warrant that has been issued. That is as much as that I can give on that.
Okay, good enough. Thank you. All right. Again, for the audience, it's since I'm actually sitting in the virtual audience for a change, I'm getting an idea what it's like on this side of the screen. If you have a question or concern from the audience, either speak up or use the microphone, which I think is available, or come up front, I guess, basically. It is hard to hear the audience. It's easy to hear the responses from up front, but it is difficult for the virtual audience to hear the questions coming out of the audience. That's something we'll have to take note of for the future. I'm learning too. All right. Next on our agenda is a public service message from Carlos Perez.
Actually, this is from Raleigh Water. I'm representing Raleigh Water. Good evening. Thanks for having me here. I'm one of the assistant superintendents for Raleigh Water. I'm assigned to the sewer maintenance division. I am the operator in responsible charge of the entire network of sewer collection system. Anybody want to take a guess how much pipe we have on the ground? Take a guess. Sewer pipe only. It kind of averages with the water pipe, but I'm just in charge of the sewer. Want to take a guess? Very close. just for that, we're very close. I don't even want to leave. So it's 2,644 miles of pipe that we own, that all of us own, okay? Because you're shareholders of this utility. So I'm here for two reasons. Number one, let me tell you some of the services we provide, at least in my division, okay? We're one of 8 divisions of the entire system, and our job is to move water. So my job is to collect your water, your untreated wastewater, make sure it makes it all the way to the wastewater treatment plant without any interruption whatsoever. Anytime we have an interruption, it's an environmental emergency. I'm the one who takes care of that emergency for you. Because the last thing we want is for untreated wastewater to get to creeks, get to the properties, to contaminate the our parks. So I am my division is very diligent, trying to make sure that we keep our pipes clean. So I have a short presentation. I don't want to take too much of your time. Can you go to the next slide, please? All right, so click it a couple times until we populate everything in there. One more. There you go. So this is how much pipe we own, 2,640. Water is about equal, okay? For every mile of pipe of sewer, we have about a mile of water. My division connects you to the wastewater treatment plant. So we are part of the sewer collection system. So my job is to make sure that your pipe from the street all the way to the wastewater treatment plant is healthy pipe. This is what healthy pipe looks like, so that debris can flow without any interruptions whatsoever to the wastewater treatment plant. Now, what happens when we don't do what we're supposed to do is pipe gets unhealthy, gets sick. This is a sick pipe. This is a pipe that has grease accumulation, and if you notice, the debris does not travel as smooth as the other pipe. My job is to make sure that with my 119 employees, we keep the pipe clean as possible. We move the debris, we CCTV the pipe, we fix the pipe. If you go to the next slide, if you don't mind, please. One more. There you go. So our responsibility is any segment of pipe that is on the right of way or behind your property. We call those easements, okay? So I'm also here so we can partner, okay? Because this is where we have to work together. The customer has to work with public utilities to make sure that we are doing what we're supposed to be doing to keep our pipes healthy. So you have a portion of responsibility, we have another portion of responsibility. Your responsibility is to maintain anything from your property all the way into the pipe. Your pipe that comes from your property connects to public pipes out in the right of way, like on the streets or on easements either behind your property. Things that will cause issues to your plumbing would be either clogged pipes, they become clogged because maybe your clean out cap has come off, and then debris accumulates inside that clean out cap and creates a blockage. Immediately what's going to happen is you're going to have issues with inadequate discharge, maybe sewer odor inside your property. You have vegetation near your pipes, and roots love to get into the sewer pipe. They find a small crack or small pinhole, that root is going to get inside the pipe and automatically you're going to continue to grow and grow and grow. And eventually, months later or maybe years later, is going to inhibit that flow, and that's going to cause issues. The roots themselves, they may wrap around the pipe and crack the pipe, which is going to exacerbate the situation, right? So there's several things that could happen. Infiltration, that's excessive water coming into the pipe, which increases the capacity of the pipe. However, any of these things, when any of these things happen, if you click to the next slide, before you call this guy, okay, give us a call, okay? And here's the number I want you to remember. It's 919-996-3245. 919-996-3245, okay? What's gonna happen is when you give us a call, the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna check the main. Make sure there's no issues in the main. We're gonna open the manhole upstream of your property, the manhole downstream of your property, make sure that there's flow, equal flow on both sides, okay? If there's good flow, most likely the problem is within your property. Now, how often do you clean your plumbing?
Excuse me, for interrupting.
No, go ahead.
We just had a serious thing in our house. Are you saying the thing, what is it you're saying at first? Like we had our sink was stopped.
So usually there's two common symptoms that you're gonna encounter. Either low drainage, it could happen in your sinks, it could happen in your bathtub. it can happen, That's one song, one sentence. The other one is sewer odor, okay? Those are the two most common issues that property owners experience with their plumbing, okay? And the reason that happens, number one, the odor happens because, well, let me ask you a question. How many of you have a car? How many of you drove here? All right, how often do you change the oil in your car?
Oh,
Every 3,000 miles,
Yes.
7,000 miles? Why do you do that?
well, we keep the insides.
Well, why just leave it running until the engine pulls up?
Oh,
It's expensive, right? It's costly. So plumbing is very costly. The moment you call the plumber is gonna start charging you in between $400, $600 just by driving onto the driveway. And that's not even deploying any tools. The moment they start deploying tools, that bill is gonna increase, okay? So what we do for the city of Raleigh is we have a fleet of 19 flush trucks. Those are the huge trucks that have the big vacuum hose on the top. It's got the tanks on the side. It reads, do not put grease or fat, oils or grease on the toilet, right? So what we do with those trucks is maintain the pipe. We try to maintain the pipe so it looks like this. Okay, and we take 10% of the system. So every year we try to do 260 miles. This year, we are at 240 something miles of the system. So that's what we do throughout the years. You see those trucks, what they're doing is making sure that we don't have unhealthy pipes, that we don't have this, okay? We do that with our pipes. However, 500,000 customers, you don't take care of your plumbing until it's a problem, right? Because it's out of sight, out of mind. So when you call the plumber, give us a call first, because we might be able to help you ask for specific tools that the plumbers are not going to offer unless you ask for them. Okay, it's like when you take your car to the mechanic, you don't tell the mechanic use the number 10 fragment because that's what I want you to use. They don't want to hear that, right? Same thing with the plumber. So when you call the plumber because you're having this slow drainage, you're having sewer odor, give us a call first. First thing we're going to do, we're going to check the main, make sure there's no issues. If there's no issues in the main, we're going to do an assessment. We're going to try to help you out. As long as there's a clean out near the edge of your property, we may be able to help you before you start putting a lot of money into a plumber. Because the plumber is going to give you partial relief. Remember, the plumber is going to come in, it's going to give you some sort of service, may not fix your problem so that you can call them a week later or a month later. So they're going to give you partial relief. So when you do call the plumber, ask them for CCTV capabilities, ask them for jetting capabilities, which is the same thing we use for the larger pipe. Does that make sense? All right, if you go to the next slide, please. All right, so there's a distinction between what we maintain and what's maintained with the property owner. And your pipe goes all the way beyond your property, okay? It is the responsibility of the property owner to maintain that, okay? However, if it's broken beyond your property line, and we see that there's evidence in the CCTV footage that your pipe is broken, there's cracks, we'll come in and fix that for you. We don't expect you to go rent a backhoe and start digging 60 rooms, okay? We do that for you, okay? However, if the break is inside your property line, okay, we're not allowed to come into your property to fix it. But we work with you, we'll work with your plumber to kind of coordinate what needs to happen. Maybe we need to renew the portion that is beyond your property with new pipe. We can do that, okay? But we're not gonna be able to help you unless you call us first. So give us a call, okay? We try to help customers. There's 600,000 customers in the city. There's 119 operators that maintain the sewer system. So it's hard work, and we do that 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days out of the year. If you go to the next slide, please. All right, so bottom line, this is what we want to prevent. We want to prevent these things from happening. This is a failure. This is an environmental emergency, and this occurs when customers are not doing the part of the deal. The deal is you take your trash, put it in the trash can. No solids inside the sinks, no fats, oils, and grease, unless it goes inside the a trash bag or can. In the back table, have some of these universal lids. Best thing to do, take all your grease, use a rag, toilet paper, paper towels, wipe it off, put the toilet paper or the paper towel inside the can, put this on the can. Or you can just pour it inside the can, put it in the refrigerator, solidify, get it congealed, put this on top, and our solid waste service can take it. Those little scrapers, what I give my friend in the back, those are excellent tools to scrape your pots and pans. I have a few of them in the back. So the main thing I want you to do is to help me prevent this thing, because when this thing's happening, it costs you, the ratepayer, a lot of money. The average sanitary sewer overflow is about $10,000 to begin. We have an average of maybe 2 a month, and the last few years, the main culprit has been grease, especially during the winter months, during the holidays, a lot of cooking, a lot of people visiting out of town. So when you have family members and friends coming over, wash them, make sure that they're not putting fats, oils, and grease down the sink. So I'm gonna show you a quick video, because there's other things that we may not think that are healthy for the plumbing system in the next video. So let's take it. Those are just a few of the household items that people think that could go down the toilet, and they will go down the toilet. The problem is they do not break apart. Those flushable wipes, they flush, they do not break apart. What happens is when you have 500,000 customers put in things that do not break apart, eventually it's going to accumulate somewhere down the system. That creates a blockage, which creates an SSO, which becomes an environmental emergency. And every time there's an environmental emergency, I have to respond to the state, to the Department of Environmental Quality, Division of Water Resources, to let them know we're doing everything we can to educate our customers, to make sure they understand what not to put inside the toilet, so things like that do not happen. Now, all of our SSOs do not account just for grease. We have pipes that are aging, they're breaking apart. We have contractors putting Google fiber lines, doing all kinds of underground construction cross boards. They do hit our lines every now and then. So those keeps us busy. If you do experience any issues with your plumbing, can you go to the next slide, please call. You can just hit the next until it populates. Make sure you call that number, 919-996-3245. If you go to the city's website, we have a lot of information that can help you identify things to do, how to protect your system, how to who to call. We have a lot of videos and a lot of flyers and handouts that helps you help us. Okay, so with that, what are your questions concerning sanitary sewer collection system?
If you can hear me, what impact do leaves have on the sewers? Our street was not picked up until after Valentine's Day, and they have piles of leaves in the gutter all winter long. People don't want to leave them on their grass because they'll kill the lawn.
So that's a good question. So the stormwater system is totally separate from the sanitary sewer collection system. The stormwater system is an open system. Anything that rains, that the street picks up through the stormwater system, go directly to the creeks with no treatment. These untreated wastewater is a closed system. Once it hits the your pipes and it hits the sewer mains, it goes directly to the wastewater treatment plant, and it gets treated before it gets discharged into the Neuse River. So there's two separate systems. The leaves accumulating, it does affect the same way as the sanitary sewer overflow when we have root intrusion or blockages. It's the exact same thing. So, but one does not affect the other. It's two separate systems. So everything that is collected on the street goes directly to the creeks. Now, what I would tell folks is try to keep the gutters clean so that when it rains, all the leaves can flow, or all the water can flow with any obstruction. If there's a blockage, what's going to happen is you're going to have flooding from your product. So That's the only thing different between your stormwater system and the sanitary sewer collection system. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Into our pipes. Is there anything else we could do as trying to keep our side of the pipes clean?
Sure, so you can have plumbers come in and do internal cleaning, you know, throughout the year, because you're using hair products, you're using detergents, you're using, you know, everything that filters through the sinks to come out. You can actually have a plumber come in and every couple of years just flush the line so that the plaque that builds inside the pipe does not accumulate to the point that it's creating a blockage. That's what we do for our system. So we keep everything flush so that our pipes does not accumulate like this one might. And grease is one of those things that if it's not treated, if it's not treated accordingly, it's gonna get so hard that it's gonna take special cutters. We have to saw through the grease. That's how hard it gets. It only gets calcified. So I do not encourage customers to use chemicals. Imagine 500,000 customers putting chemicals down the pipe. It's going to clean your pipe. What's going to happen is all that chemical is going to travel to my plant and it's going to kill all the biology that is helpful to treat the plant, to treat all that. So are there products out there that are helpful for the environment? Yes, but best thing to do is get a plumber. Every couple of years, just hydrate your pipes from clean out to clean out. That's the best thing to do. Does that answer your question? Okay, great.
So
Good question.
Say like don't use like liquid plumber.
There's Drano, there's liquid plumber. Again, I don't encourage customers to use it. They're good products. My fear is if I have 500,000 customers pouring chemical down the drain to clean the pipe, that accumulation goes to the plant and is going to kill the bacteria. The needed bacteria for wastewater treatment.
What about the use for?
They're hit and miss. It all depends on retention time and how much you use and how long they stay in the pipe. It is, but again, just like any other thing that is foreign to the collection system, eventually the wastewater treatment plant is the recipient of all those chemicals, all those enzymes, and we don't want that to cause an imbalance of our biology at the plant. But again, there are several products out there. Again, I'm not encouraging to use it. Just remember what's going to happen at the end when it gets to the wastewater treatment plant. The best tool out there is hydraulic jetting. That's the best tool. That's what we use, hydraulic jetting. That's a good question. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
There have been messages in the media that it is not necessary to rinse dishes before putting them into modern dishwashers, that this wastes water. But it's still very important to scrape the dishes clean.
Absolutely.
And trash.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Paper
that's
towels.
not emphasized.
Yeah, paper towels. If you can use paper towels to wipe your pots, your dishes before you put it into the dishwasher, before you start cleaning, it helps tremendously because it helps prevent the accumulation of all that debris inside the pipe. Remember, we're talking about the pipe that I maintain is from 8 inches in diameter to 96 inches. I can actually walk upright in one of my biggest pipes. Pipes you're talking about within your property be from 2 inches all the way to 4 inches. So it doesn't take much for them to accumulate, especially if you have an older property and you've never done anything to your plumbing, it will accumulate. So just keep a sharp lookout for odor issues and slower drainage, because those are the main two indicators of an incipient plumbing issue with your property. Any other questions?
We do tours.
We do tours. For a while, we kind of stopped them because our plant is under construction. I've been with Raleigh Water since 2004, and I don't remember our plant never not being under construction. Now, you also have to realize we are growing very, very rapidly. There's an average of 40 to 60 people moving into our city every day. Our system is growing at a rate of 3.5 miles per month. So 3.5 miles is what's being put into the ground. So that's more pipe, more water consumption, more untreated wastewater going into the plant. So as our community grows, so goes the system. And we have to be able to keep up. Right now, our plant is rated for 80 million gallons a day. and is actually, that's normal. It's rated for 120, and doing rain events, also he peaks at that level. So, any other question? That's a good question.
Whitney?
Yes, so with regards to the rapid expansion of Raleigh, do you see problems? Well, number one, with being able to, expand the system out to accommodate enough places to be built in the next few years. And then also too, with in the next few years, be able to just handle the overall volume, or some areas being taxed that are becoming higher, concentration of people, that type of thing.
Yeah, so we designed the system to accommodate potential growth. The biggest challenge coming up in the next 20 years may be water. So we're looking at the possibility of creating another reservoir. We have Falls Lake, we have Lake Wheeler, Benson Lake, and Garnet area that are our primary reservoirs, but that's the primary challenge. With the collection system, however, our challenge is the older neighborhood that had the older type of pipe that were put in the ground 100 years ago. 60 years ago, there was actually breaking apart like clay. So every time we have an opportunity to fix or repair a pipe, we fix it with material that's not gonna break as soon as give us a good investment, basically. So does that answer your question as far as the
Yes,
growth?
yes, yeah.
All right, so I'll stick around here for a few more minutes.
Carlos,
Yes,
I've got two questions for you.
yes, sir.
My house was built in the 70s, like a lot of the people in the neighborhood. I have lost my clean out spout, I guess. It is long since overgrown with grass. That's number one. And two, I don't think every house, particularly the older houses, have what'd you call it, backwater valves?
Backwater valves, correct.
Is that true?
So not every property requires to have a backwater valve. In the 2000, the plumbing code made that a requirement if your property was below the level of the sanitary sewer. Or if you had like a basement that was at below the height or the level of the sanitary sewer. So yes, that's right. A lot of houses were built before 2000s did not have that. We do get the calls from time to time where properties are getting sewer backup as a result of being in a lower area, the lower level than the sewer. Those are very rare. However, most property now are being built with backwater valves and also two clean out. Clean out closest to the foundation of the house, and a clean out at the edge of the property, right at the property line, like right before the sidewalk. Usually it's next to the water meter. Some properties, the new property have them, so older properties don't. The problem with us is that if we get a call from an older property and there's no clean out, there's really not much we can do, because we cannot go encroach your property. We cannot go inside your house. So everything that we do is outside of the property, because our jurisdiction of maintenance is the public infrastructure, which is out in the streets or on easements. However, easements is another issue, because easement is basically belongs to the property owner. We just have the right to enter if there's a break in the pipe. But if there's an issue and you connect to a main that is behind your property on an easement, that is completely the responsibility of the homeowner, because we have no jurisdiction to enter, to be in that property, to establish the property. So does that answer your question about the clean out?
Yes, in all cases, yes.
All right.
Thank you. Great presentation.
Those are good. You guys have very great questions. Here's what I'm gonna do. So next barbecue, you invite me over. I do all these presentations for all your neighbors, all your friends, because it's gonna help you, it's gonna help me.
So you guys did a great job with the new water pipe. That your team that laid all the new pipe down the road.
So that's if my department, my counterpart on the water side. Yeah, so again, that's part of our continued improvement with the whole system.
Yes.
Increasing pipe, adding new water pipes, and then for every mile of pipe of water we put, we have to put at least a mile of sewer to collect that.
Is there a plan to make the street not a jigsaw or quilt, but actually it's new pavements like it used to be before you guys came in and dug those beautiful holes and like.
So I can speak on behalf of the collection system. Whenever we do any repair, our job is to make sure, our goal is to make sure that we leave the site better than when we found it. If it's an easement, we try to replant, put grass seed. If it is the road, we try to repay. We try to repay as on the DOT standards, as best as we can. Usually the pavement is done in conjunction with transportation services. We do the digging and they come in and repay that for us. As far as CIP projects, larger projects, that is the goal. Now, if you want to know more information about specific big projects that are happening, you go to our city website, go under capital improvement project. There's a whole list of projects that you'll see and give you the status of that project, whether it's in the design phase or bidding phase, or is on the construction, or is under whatever phase of the project. But that's our goal. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'll be at the back if you want to talk a little bit. If you want to talk food, something.
Thanks, Carlos. Okay, I think we're falling a little behind, but I think we're still okay time-wise. I have Het. Are you up next, I believe? Northern Corridor.
That sounds good. Thank you, Larry. Good evening, everyone. My name is Het Patel, City of Raleigh Transportation Transit. Just pause there for a second as I pull up the presentation. Can you hear me okay? Especially in the room.
Yes.
Okay. And I can't mode.
Now, while Het is setting up, as some of you may remember that Het was here, what, maybe 6 months ago? This second time around.
That is correct. I was there in August of last year, and I am back as we've had some updates to share from the engagement perspective. And I want to make sure again, can you guys see the larger slideshow instead of the notes and everything else?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So the agenda for today, again, I'll try to keep the first part of this brief because you have seen this in August of last year, and then focus more on the specifics of the initial screening process, the engagement summary, and the next steps that we're going to be going through this year. So in 2016, the Wake Transit Plan identified a half-cent sales tax to improve transit within Wake County. There were 4 big moves. Bus rapid transit falls within that third big move, which is providing frequent, reliable urban mobility. And bus rapid transit is different from the local fixed route services in its features that it provides from a dedicated lanes perspective to really get transit to be more reliable. Enhanced stations, which are level boarding, which make it easier for people to get on and off the bus, as well as specialized vehicles that allow for more capacity inside the vehicle, as well as bicycle loading inside the vehicle. There would be transit signal priority, again, allowing the buses to communicate to traffic signals if they're running behind, to be able to request certain accommodations from the traffic signal to try to get back on schedule. And we would have more service and more frequent service. So really running from 4:30 a.m. to midnight on weekdays and 5 a.m. to midnight on weekends. And then there'd be, again, that frequent service. So in the morning peak hours and the afternoon peak hours, it would be every 10 minutes. And then it would match the local high frequency network of every 15 minutes for the rest of the day. We would have off-board fare collection if and when we go back to fare collection. Again, this is to help people get on and off the bus faster. So we have 4 key corridors for the Wake Bus Rapid Transit program of projects. Those are the solid lines that you see east out to New Bern and New Hope, the southern corridor going into town of Garner, the western corridor going to town of Cary, and then the northern corridor initially identified out to Crabtree Boulevard, and then the study the city is doing now, looking at those extensions connecting to Midtown Raleigh and to Triangle Town Center. There are also extensions to the southern and western corridors that are currently being studied by the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organizations. I just wanted to highlight those. Those are in a planning study as well at the moment, not in any level of design. So the Corridor specifically, again, we started a planning study called the Major Investment Study in the summer of 22. The purpose of the study is to identify and connect routes from downtown Raleigh to Midtown Raleigh and from downtown Raleigh to Triangle Town Center. So we are not looking to pick one or the other. We are looking for a connection to both of those termini from downtown. And then we will look at what makes the most sense from an implementation perspective and phasing perspective to try to look at federal competitiveness of projects for federal grant or working through the local WIC transit plan funding to identify how that improvement can be programmed in the future years. So in summer and fall of 22, we were doing some initial analysis of existing conditions, fatal flaws, again, looking at the existing roadway network. Where can these large 60-foot articulated buses really operate within the corridor? What are some initial roadway alignments that we should be considering? In the summer of last year, we went through kind of a refinement of those and had public engagement in fall of 2023. And that is where I'm here today. Again, I just want to highlight the orange that says we are here. That is from the engagement presentations that I was doing towards the end of last year. We're kind of in between that stage. Our consultant team has been working with the engagement summary of the initial screening, and we're going to be moving into that next phase, which is the detailed evaluation of preferred alignments later this spring and summer. And then, sorry, before I move on, we will be coming back with community engagement later on with the detailed screening before we get to choosing a preferred alignment option connecting from downtown Raleigh to Midtown and from downtown Raleigh to Triangle Town Center. So just again, highlighting at a high level, the initial screening alignments that were considered are all of the roadways that are listed here to the left, which are shown in orange connecting out to Midtown Raleigh and in blue connecting out to Triangle Town Center. And if you think about it from an alignment perspective, coming out of downtown, really Capitol Boulevard's the only option until we get to the split of Wake Forest Road, Atlantic, Capitol, and then there are options again when you try to go out west towards Midtown with either Six Forks, St. Albans. So this is not to say that these alignments were examined as shown 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The next step of the process is to again refine these alignments and complete detailed screening on preferred alignments. So the way that these were studied, we're really looking at individual roadway segments and what they offer from a transit propensity perspective. So what type of ridership is there on these corridors existing with our local route services, and then other features as it relates to bus rapid transit style of service. And so looking at Triangle Town Center, again, there are options on how you can make that trip from downtown Raleigh to Triangle Town Center. I do want to highlight that in our initial screening, again, looking at the Lewisburg Road segment, once it splits off from Capitol Boulevard, there isn't a lot of existing density and ridership as there isn't a fixed route corridor operating there. So our initial screening of criteria looked at transit-oriented development potential. So really from a market perspective, what are the opportunities as well as existing development and existing cities' future growth areas, including kind of the future land use plan and the urban growth frameworks. I looked at multimodal connectivity. So what are options for bicycle pedestrian connections to transit? Environmental considerations, looked at the environmental justice population, so people that are more likely to ride transit services, whether it's zero car households or lower income households, as well as just in general people looking to use transit service. It also looked at from an environmental project perspective if there would be any impacts to parks properties or state historical preservation type of properties that were along the corridor. Traffic operations, transit connectivity, service reliability, all three of those really kind of connect to how are we connecting to our existing transit services, as well as what is the existing traffic on the corridor and can it provide reliable transit services? So is the corridor already congested? Is there an opportunity, if there's not a lot of traffic, to use some of the existing general purpose lanes as potential dedicated bus lanes to offer more speed and reliability for a transit service on the corridor? Population employment just looked at the existing population as well and employment as well as future population and employment out to 2040. And then the ridership potential again looked at some activity centers and growth centers within the different corridors. So we haven't completed that analysis yet. At the point of doing the fall engagement, we really were looking to get the public's feedback on the initial screening of alignment as well. And so in fall of last year, we had specifically to the Northern Corridor an engagement opportunity, whereas for the New Bern, Southern, and Western corridors, we provided project updates to where the current status was for the project. And for the Northern Corridor, we had 3 open house events geared in different locations of the city, one in Midtown, one in Triangle Town Center, and one in downtown. We had a virtual Ask a Planner session. We had an online survey that was open for a little more than a month towards from November all the way to the second week of January. And then we had presentations to community meetings like this one, as well as other organizations related to the Wake Transit Plan stakeholders. We had overall 57 social media posts throughout that engagement period, 40,000 mailings to residents on the corridor. Our website was up. We did some updates to the city manager's update, newsletters, press release, as well as running digital ads. There's a typo there, digital bus ads within our existing buses that run along the corridors, as well as putting out yard signs on the corridors. Overall, between the social, there was a lot of impressions reached on Facebook and Instagram. Again, the difference there is impressions means someone scrolling by, looking at it. The people reached means individual peoples that actually saw that. So again, there's times where someone may have come across the same thing twice. And so that's why it's being slightly double counted. So people reached is the better number to look at. Overall, again, number of users for people that visited the city's website to look at the engagement opportunity, 507, and then 617 views on the specific Northern Corridor video that we had out. I already highlighted the 3 locations for the public engagement, so I'm going to skip over this one and get to the meat of our engagement, which is the online survey where we had the most amount of participation. The purpose of the survey was to really better understand the transportation needs and mobility challenges, as well as the choices that residents are making within the study area on which places they frequently visit or why they make certain choices related to their related to how they get around within the study area. So there was 9 questions, 2 different mapping activities, and then an open-ended general comment section. We also had 13 standard demographic questions that are on the city's public input engagement portal. I do want to caveat the engagement from a demographic questions perspective is challenging because those are optional, and so we don't always get full response from the demographic questions on the online survey. So we had a total of 422 participants take the online survey. Again, the number of responses is when you take those 422 respondents, they may not have all responded to the 9 questions that were there, and so there's a total of 7,000 responses, 825 comments. The first question asked people, which area within the study area do they travel to more often or most often? And you can see a higher majority of those participants did connect between downtown Raleigh to Midtown Raleigh than downtown Raleigh to Triangle Town Center. Again, that just means that we were probably a little bit more active from a response perspective in the Midtown area. Triangle Town Center and Capitol Boulevard Route 1 are one of the highest ridership routes within our system. So not saying that there isn't ridership along Triangle Town Center. Some of the popular destinations that people selected when they were asked between Midtown Raleigh and Triangle Town Center, the different roadways that they connect to or where they frequently visit. Again, along the Midtown area, Wake Forest Road came up highest along with Atlantic Avenue. And then even on the Triangle Town Center, Atlantic Avenue and Capitol Boulevard came up higher as well. Generally, bikeways and greenways was also pretty high on the list of transit connectivity that people are looking to have with. And it was also good to see that local routes also came up relatively in the top 5 in most cases. And that's, again, a good sign that if there's a BRT cell service that potentially goes on either of these corridors, there is an opportunity for connecting to local and regional transit routes. In terms of choosing what transportation mode that people felt like they wanted to use for their trips, convenience was the highest rated, then speed and reliability, and then safety. And so again, what that led to on this corridor, to no one's surprise, is people deciding to drive alone in their car for 79% of their trips, and then 7% in public transit, 6% for bike, and 4% for walk, and then the remaining is other category. So again, trying to take some lessons from the online survey here for the bus rapid transit project is trying to provide a more convenient public transit option that has the speed and reliability that cars can provide, is potentially an opportunity to try to influence those decisions to be able to have more public transit opportunity there. Overall, in terms of asking people to rank what transit feature was most important to them, so 1 being the most important, 5 being least important, again, reliability came up the highest with an average rank of 2.21, but highest when you look at all 5 of those again, and then frequency and speed. So yeah, I think one of the key takeaways for us from an engagement perspective on this part of the survey really is that trying to make sure that bus rapid transit style service, if you're trying to implement it somewhere, is one really helping with the on-time performance of the route, as well as the reliability to make sure it is getting people to the points that they want to get to. And then the frequency, again, that helps with the reliability of the project. So the next steps for us on the Northern Corridor are to identify alignments for the detailed screening. So we will be taking the engagement summary that we received along with the technical initial screening we've done, refining those alignments that you saw earlier, and coming down to about 2 alignments for each study area. So 2 alignments going out to Midtown Raleigh, and then 2 alignments going out to Triangle Town Center, that will then go through the further detailed screening of the remaining alignments. And then we will have a public engagement session in the spring, summer of this year on that detailed screening. So that will show the results of the detailed screening as well of those different roadway segments that will be studied. And then looking to try to get to a preferred alternative for each one of those corridors by the end of this year, sometime in the fall of 2024. And so I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Ed,
If
does
you look at those,
go ahead, Ted.
the corridors that you have outlined for North Raleigh with Wake Forest Road and Six Forks and so forth, these are basically roads that existed on the Fendel Beavers map of Wake County in 1872. They were really country roads, farm to market roads, and we've kind of put a suburban landscape on them. But have you looked at how far people live from these routes in terms of the ridership? It seems like with the current dispersed population in North Raleigh, most people live a half a mile away or so from the nearest bus line or more, and are probably not going to ride it. Whereas if you maybe live closer or on the line in some of the newer high density properties being built, you're more likely to build. So are you really building more for the future development as opposed to the current living patterns?
I think the initial screening does focus on both the existing population and employment on and along these roadway alignments, as well as the proposed or projected future within the regional model. And so it does capture both of those equally. I would say that the other avenue of this really is, again, trying to make sure that as the county grows and there's other development that's happening already on these corridors, we're really trying to navigate public transportation services that can really get people from those activity centers and connecting those activity centers, whether they're crosstown or coming into downtown. And so our next step of the detailed screening will be looking at a Federal Transit Administration's ridership model, which really looks at, again, what will the ridership be if you pick one of these alignments? And then is that going to make it a competitive federal project if we submitted it for a federal grant?
Whitney, after your question, I'm going to hold questions because your presentation ties very nicely into Dana, who's going to present next, and people may want to just wait to ask questions because one or the two of you may cover exactly what everybody has in mind.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, your presentation was great, and you hit, everybody's common questions of frequency, reliability, and speed. I mean, you hit them all. Perfect. So Whitney, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to ask these one at a time, sort of make it easier. So at one of the public comment sessions a while back, well, first question is, are we still doing free bus service or has that been stopped?
We are still under a free service through June 30, 2024. During this budget cycle, there are some conversations with council that we'll be looking at potentially returning to fares.
Okay, because it's sort of interesting because in a public comment session, there was a gentleman in there making a case for more buses and showed a video. And on the video, it was a crowded bus. He videoed as he got on there. But there were like people with pillows and blankets who apparently were just camped out and sleeping on the bus. And there was, suitcases and the aisle and all that kind of thing. And, we do have a housing, everyone knows we have a housing situation in Raleigh. I don't know if that's where we want people to be going for that situation, but at the same time, I also know I've run into people who live in Midtown and over in North Hills that don't want to have cars and want to take public transportation and Ubers and different types of alternative deals. I just think that having that type of situation, and if you go up in the Northeast, they have a lot of problems where people can't feel safe on the public transportation. So I just sort of want to get your comment on that. And I've got one other question.
If you want to defer that to Dana, that's fine.
I'll take it, and then Dana can add on to it if she wants to as well. But I will say again, I mean, I think that is a general concern through the last couple of years of being fare free is operational safety for bus drivers as well as potential transit users or users that do not have an end destination within the system. And so that does go with potentially going back to fares, alleviating a little bit of that. I think in general, from a social community perspective, as you mentioned, and I think we heard earlier during the police report, homelessness in general is a larger conversation.
One other question, with, like extended routes and I think we've done some of this in the past where there might be like a van at an end route rather than, taking the big route out further. with the flexibility of being able to drop people off at maybe even potentially at their houses, or you know, tying in and working some sort of deal out with Uber and Lyft, where they could extend routes. Are you guys doing anything like that now? Is that on the table?
Again,
Yeah, I think that one may be a good one for Dana after Dana
Okay.
presents, because there are opportunities with our on-demand service and potential microtransit projects pilots as well.
Yeah, because I think you're talking about Raleigh Connect, which I think Dana can probably handle better.
I do
Yes,
want
we're-
to say one thing, real quick, I'm sorry. If you're going back to paying, then you need to be more reliable. You need to be more, you can't, if you're gonna have to pay, you cannot be waiting on a bus that doesn't ever show, so I understand that, you want to get rid of some of those that are riding the bus, but there's some that are riding the bus and they are, they're saying, I will pay for Uber before I'll ride the bus because Uber's more reliable and I know I'm going to get to work on time. And I'm sorry.
No, that's 100% a great comment. And again, as I showed through some of our engagement results, that is a high priority to try to get more reliable service in the grounds. Again, through the COVID pandemic, we also had challenges with operator shortages that did affect some of the performance as well from a transit perspective. So not saying that, going back to fares is solely based on that one aspect of wanting to have safety,
Right.
security for operators, but it's also related to the overall revenue that does bring it into the system, and then going back to trying to be more reliable with that service.
I think at this point, Dana, let's turn it over to you. Dana Smith with Go Raleigh, right?
That is correct. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, I'm going to give a presentation tonight just on our fixed route. Kind of went over the BRT area, but this is the fixed route that is in the Midtown CAC area. So we're going to go over some general information for those of you who have never ridden the fixed route before, the bus. So I just want to give some important viable information that can be used so you can trip plan if you want to try the route. So right now, this is a service days and hours, the Monday through Friday weekend schedule. There's roughly about 40 routes in operation. And there's a breakdown of what they consist of, contract routes, and some subsidized routes as well. And all our service schedules can be found on goraleigh.org. You want to look up any route, whether it be in your area or in another, goraleigh.org will have every route listed according to the actual route number or actually by time and increment, whether it's 15 minutes, 60, 30 minutes, it will have that information listed. Right now, as had talked about, it is currently fare free until June 30th. We will be going before council to decide whether return of fares will happen, but right now it is fare free. This is the actual service map. So the map I told you about that you can go to see which routes are in your area. This is what the route or the map currently looks like. If you drop down and select routes, you'll be able to view it by route according to which route you would like to take. These are the current apps for trip planning. I mentioned if you wanted to try and plan a trip out, this is some of the trip planning apps that we have out: Google Maps, Transit app, and UMO currently. These are some of our regional transit agencies. This is what their buses look like. Go Raleigh is here in the middle, but we have Go Triangle, Go Cary. These are some of the actual other regional partners that you will see on some of our stops or some of the stops we share with them. We're going to go into some major facilities, and these are the ones also in your area. So currently our Go Raleigh station is located downtown. It is right next to Moore Square.
It was recently expanded and renovated in 2018. It includes about 7 platforms. 5 are on the inside within the station, and there's one on Blount Street and one on Wilmington Street. And this is just the layout of what it looks like in the Go Raleigh station. Here is our bus systems map. I left the link in here. So afterward, Mr. Larry, if you would like for me to send the PowerPoint, I can send it out so you can have these links.
Yes, indeed.
But you'll be able to click on the system map, and these are going to show you the routes in your area. I zoomed in because there's listed some parking rides, and there's an actual legend on the side that tells you which one are parking lot rides, what the maps consist of. So right now in the current area, there's Shelley Lake is a parking ride, Green Road Park is a parking ride, and Grace Lutheran Church is also a parking ride. These are active parking rides right now.
Excellent.
So now we're going to go into some recent and upcoming changes. So I want to talk a little bit about our fleet, what it consists of. Currently, Go Raleigh has about 110 buses. 76 of them are compressed natural gas buses. That's what they run off of, compressed natural gases. We have 5 electric buses with more to come. We're on about a 1 to 2 year wait right now for them, but we have more electric buses that we're going to add. And then we have about 29 biodiesel buses that we have also. And we're in the process of bringing aboard renewable natural gas, so that's coming soon. With the compressed natural gas, we have to date since 2018, there's been a reduction of greenhouse gases for about 27,000 metric tons that we've currently been able to reduce because of adding the compressed natural gas bus to our fleet. So here are the routes that currently run from Midtown CAC routes. Route 2, which we're going to see later on, is going to a new service. And then Route 8, 23L, 24L, and then a future route in 2026 for Route 14. That will be a brand new service. Here's our amenities, because we do bus and bus facility improvements. So some of our amenity investments are shelters, trash cans, benches, large shelters that have solar, that have the ability to have bike racks there. Real-time data is attached to some of these points. So at the top, that's the red standard bus shelter that we have. That bus shelter normally has a bench in it also. And then one of the more advanced one, which is the ones that we have the solar attached, bike rack, USB chargers are the enhanced points, which is the bottom right. So some of the enhanced stops that are going to come to your area is Falls of Noose. And those are the orange icons, if you can see them. Those are the enhancement stops that are going to be improved. Millbrook at Cedarhurst, Capitol Boulevard at New Hope, Capitol Boulevard at Millbrook. Those are the ones that's going to be enhanced. And those will be the larger shelters, with some of them will carry the real-time data, which displays the bus routes. Some of them will have USB chargers, solar panels in order to get your real-time data or your USB chargers, and also bike racks as well. And here's a picture of what they will look like or proposed. And then our bus stop improvements in the area, those are the blue icons. So all the blue pins represent some type of improvement that we're going to do to that bus stop. So right now, we are scheduled in the future to do about 4 in the Midtown area. But in the next 18 months, you should be able to see those improvements with those particular stops. And those improvements may look like the red shelters with the benches, and it also has a trash can as well that will come with that. And here's the route map. I placed the link at the bottom. We can click into it just so you can see. It lets me. And so here's a view. It will allow you to go in and view the routes. You can select whatever route you would like to. We can do Falls for Noose, and it's gonna show you highlighted which route you would like to see. It will go by stop number or route. You can do inbound or outbound. All right, and upcoming is some service changes. Those are the Route 2 and Route 14 we're gonna discuss. So Route 14 is a new service, and I have listed it will provide the service to downtown Raleigh, Triangle Town, Wake Forest, Atlantic Avenue, and Green Road. This service is due to begin in fall of 2026, and this is the proposed schedule to the right. So it's gonna be on a 30-minute increment during weekday during the peak and midday hours, and 30-minute increments on Saturday and Sunday during the day. And that is the actual span of service that's listed also. And this is just a map of where the route will actually run for 14. Route 2, it is a current route already, but right now it sits at a 30-minute increment, so it will increase its frequency to 15 minutes. It will currently continue to service the areas that it already services, but we will increase it from 30 minutes to 15 minutes. And then on the weekend and daytime, it will increase from 60 to 30. And that frequency is due to increase beginning 2026. So we have also the map for Route 2. Connections will stay the same, just the improvement will happen with the increase of frequency. And then I've listed some resources for your bus asset map, contact for us, and Awake Transit Plan to find out what information or actual improvements that we have to our service investments that we're doing for the bus improvements. And a few items for BRT as well. We have not put in here transit yet. I know there was a question about, being able to use services like Uber and Lyft. However, we are now working microtransit for rural areas. Roseville is going to be the first that's going to be the test for the microtransit. So it will start off in rural areas first. We have not shifted it to any other areas at the moment. Those that have high frequency buses in their area will be less likely to get microtransit because it will become overwhelming for the actual system to run. You'll get a lot of people rather, like you stated, ride with Lyft or Uber and overwhelm the system, and it won't work in that area. It'll be overconsumed. So we're looking at more rural areas to be able to use those type of services at right now. But that is the end of my presentation. Mr. Larry, I can send this to you, but I'll open the floor for questions.
That'd be great. Before anybody has questions, I do have one question for you. At one time, there was a possibility of a transfer station, particularly in the North Hills area, when Kane did not go ahead with his updated rezoning. That kind of got put on the wayside, but I always understood that the city still maintained the property rights within North Hills to have a transfer station. Looking at where you're going to do the enhanced sheltering, I think Millbrook and Six Forks was one of them. I was wondering if there's any update on proceeding with a transfer station between routes.
Did you want to answer that, Hat? Because I know you came aboard. Okay.
Yeah, I can try to answer that. So actually, that condition was potentially part of that rezoning, and when that rezoning did not go through, we don't have a location at the moment that we would have the transfer center there at Midtown. We are always looking for other opportunities, and as Dana mentioned some of these additional routes come online in 2026. And with Wake Transit Plan funding, we will continue to monitor if there's any opportunity to have that project come to fruition, but we do not have a location at the moment.
Okay. Whitney?
Yeah, so I make one comment first. The station over there at Falls of Noose Road, I was driving by one day. It's over there near where the Walmart is. And it was a pile of trash and shopping carts and everything. I was about ready to take a picture of it and send it to the city. Like a day later, I drove by there, it was all cleaned up. And I was like, okay, those folks are doing their job there. That I was really pleased to see that. But the shopping carts were still there. And, I was thinking that it'd be really great if there was some type of app or something that the Walmarts and the grocery stores could see where their shopping carts are, scattered around. And a lot of times that is at the bus stations. If something like that could be put into I'm sure if Walmart saw their shopping carts were sitting out at different places, they'd send someone out of a truck to pick them up. But in any case, my question is this: is there any plans to have, and maybe there already is, security cameras in these bus stops?
Dana, do you want to start or you want me to?
I am not tracking any security cameras. I know we started we have started at Go Raleigh Station with providing security there. And I think that is the start. Currently, we do have security that patrol there, and we're trying to get a lot of the loitering, the laying down, the homelessness under control. And we've worked to do that and secure that at different bus stop points. I am not tracking that there is any camera right now. But I don't know if you may have different information.
I was just going to add, we are going to have cameras on the stations for the bus rapid transit system, because they are larger stations with more amenities, so they will have cameras on those. And that's where we would have cameras potentially at end of the line, termini, park and ride, or transit center or transfer center type of locations, again, where we anticipate there to be more routes connecting or traffic, public traffic.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, and I will add, all of our newer park and rides do have security cameras.
Can you give an update on how you are renovating existing stops? I noticed some time ago there was a stop on inbound Capitol Boulevard just south of Hodges Street, where the stop was next to a low spot on the curb, and every time it rained, there'd be a big puddle in front of the stop and the bench, and when the bus would pull over to the curb, it would spray the bench with water. And it looks like there's been a little bit of work done on the curb, and that may or may not be as bad, but it's still a low spot. And I think, looking at the amenities that people are expecting, I would think not being sprayed by puddles would be one of them. And are you addressing that?
It definitely would depend on the ridership of each stop. That does play a part in our improvements. So anything over 10 or more riders will get the more enhanced stop with the shelter and the bench. Anything 3 or more will get just a bench. However, we've improved areas that struggle with water puddles and deep areas where it's a lot of mud. So if we can get that information, I can jot down that and we can look into that particular area.
But I think it would be very simple for someone to drive the routes and after a rain, and you can see where the problems are very easily. They're all over the place. You should not have to wait for someone to report it. I think that's something an inspector could see very readily after a rainfall.
Okay. What area was that?
Well, the one I noted was on southbound Capitol Boulevard, just south of Hodges Street. There was a a bench and a fairly new looking shelter over it, but it's there's still some water standing there next to the curb. I'd still be very careful. It looks like there's been some work done to try to drain the water away, but it's a low spot on the street, so water's going to still collect there.
Okay, I took that down and I will look into that as well.
After it rains, go look at it.
Okay, thank you.
I do have one comment about that. I think it's nice that the city is slowly improving the shelters at the bus stops. First question is for Dana, I guess. It'd be nice to know which stops meet the minimum ridership, either in a map or some other general utility. But the other aspect is while we're waiting for an improved shelter, there are so many bus stops that don't have a pad, they don't have a bench, and they just have a sign. It would be nice if you could take all the bus stops, identify what they have, identify whether they're going to be improved, and then when they're going to be improved. Because even local to us at the Colony Shopping Center, for example, where I see a number of people waiting at the 2 stops that are in that area, there's just a sign. The one put in a new building, the medical center, and they got a new shelter, which was nice, which says to me, when a new development comes on board, and if there's a bus stop close by, that's the opportunity to improve both the bus stop and the shelter. And that was a good move. About the only good thing about the building they put in, but that's my point, is that there needs to be a plan to do more, a bench and a trash can at minimum, and then some kind of basic shelter at all bus stops, as long as they have the ridership requirements.
Yes, and we are tracking that, Mr. Larry. We do have a list of actual bus stop improvements that we're working on. Like I said, they have to meet that minimum ridership. And we have about roughly 49 stops that we're getting ready to improve. So we've tackled from what we call set 7, and we're moving on to set 8, which is going to consist of 49 stops that's going to be improved. So we do have a list of those that need to be improved, and we are working to improve those stops.
Is there a way that we can view that list or track that list?
You won't be able to view the actual list, but you will be able to view on the resource page. I gave you the bus system map. If you scroll over the map, there's a black, red, and orange actual square box, and it'll tell you whether it's been approved or not, and it'll also tell you whether there's been boardings and how many boardings that stop actually has.
Excellent, thank you. Anybody else? Well, Dana, thank you. Very, very helpful presentation. I've been pushing for years to get more park and rides. I didn't even know we had the 3 park and rides. I was used to the one that used to be out at Triangle Mall, 'cause I used to take it to the fair all the time. But that's a good move in the right direction to minimize cars and just get on the bus and go. It's terrific. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And yes, and Dana, if you wouldn't mind sending us the presentations, that'd be great.
Yep. Will do.
Okay. Anybody else from the audience before we move on? All right, well, I think we've got Christina sitting out there in the wings, but before I open it up to Christina, and before I forget, February was a tremendous month for the City of Raleigh and for CACs. First of all, thanks to Christina making the motion, along with the other counselors, we now have CACs being recognized again. And that's not a small thing. It makes a big difference, so that if I go to council or if I go to the planning commission and I'm representing the consensus of the CAC for a particular issue, it carries more weight. It's a tremendous step forward after 4 years. So that's number one. If I had been there in person, maybe we should have some non-alcoholic champagne, but we'll do that in March, guaranteed. The other thing was the Six Forks Road Improvement Project. While it wasn't exactly the way it was laid out in the project report, it's another big step for the city. I think in the long run, especially with BRT coming about, it's going to be vital for transportation along the roadway. And I think it's only step one. I think it's going to lead to the second phase, the third phase, and so on and so forth. And that's going to become, in my book, a major thoroughfare with enough to carry buses and cars together. That's long range thinking, just for Het's benefit. So let me introduce Christina Jones.
Hey guys, good evening. I am Christina Jones. I am District E. So if you live on the other side of 440, not the Midtown side, you are in my district. So I'm the Barrett Drive, Computer Drive area. One that thank you so much for those acknowledgements, both for CACs and for the Six Forks Road. Those were big things. I also want to uplift the Mine Creek Trail. That was another big one that was also in the residents' favor, because the conversation that was happening on council, both with Six Forks and with Mine Creek, are promises made to residents and how that needs to be a huge component of why we make decisions and what it's about. The Mine Creek Trail was, as it was presented by council, the option they wanted to go with was significantly more expensive. I mean, there's a significantly less expensive as they showed, and we chose the more expensive one because promises were made to those residents that we would not bring the greenway trail to their backyards. And the majority of council felt that that was not something that we wanted to break our word on. And it's the same conversation that we had for Six Forks. I know that was a long, drawn out. Definitely, I think I want to highlight what Councilor Patton said, and we can recognize that in the past, there were possibly, I don't want to say mistakes, but there was just holdups for whatever reason. And while we were not responsible for that, we are now. And so we wanted to make sure that resident voices, and as best as we could do to the plan, seeing that it ballooned in scope about 3 times what had been budgeted in the past, there wasn't a real possibility for canceling, because we'd already taken, we already have that money from that bond. And how would that instill confidence for the future if anyone else wanted to do, if we wanted to do another bond in the future? So that was something, those are the decisions happening behind the scenes. I do want to highlight some of my questions in the Six Forks project. And again, being that I am the other side of Six Forks, I do hold some reservations seeing how much growth is happening there for just focusing on that one side. But I understand that we're 10 years ago when we made this plan, and the growth was not even foreseen 10 years ago as to what was happening on that side. So as we move forward, I am going to try and be that advocate and what we can and can't require of developers, because most of their developments aren't even going to face Six Forks Road. So that's not something that I can necessarily condition with development. And we will definitely keep our eye out on that.
There is one forthcoming in that section of the roadway.
I'm sorry.
There is one down the road coming in that section of the roadway. So you'll
Right.
see that very shortly.
Right, but that still isn't the entirety of that section. So even if it's just one piece of it, that doesn't account for the entirety between 440 and Wake Forest Road, or down that way. So I'm not just thinking about their one possibility. I'm like, how do we make that flow really happen better? So that's what I'm going to be focused on in your area, close to your area, in District A, where most of you are, for the foreseeable future. Excuse me. With CACs, yes, super proud. I was the chair for 3 years of the organization. I was there when they dismantled us, and it was really moving to be the one to bring it back. It's not going to look the same as of right now. The biggest thing, and I've talked to all of RCAC, and I'm in conversation with the leadership there, is how are we building future leaders? How are we building a pipeline of leaders to grow with the city? I know when I was chair of Northwest, when I first got on there, we didn't get any sort of training. It's kind of like getting on council. We don't get any training at all. And really, how does that help residents? So in this next iteration, as we are working through, I have conversations set up. I've already talked with the chair of the RCAC, which his name is Robert Rice. And as we continue to grow that, making sure that we are pulling and picking leaders, we have a class. And if you guys haven't taken it yet, it's Raleigh Neighborhood College and Citizens Leadership Academy. They're the first 2 classes that I took with the city, and they are near and dear to my heart. So we have residents from all over the city taking that twice a year. There's a spring class and a fall class. And it's really, how are we using those resources? How are we using those people who have already shown an intention of learning about the city and teaching them about CACs so that we can continue this, and it's something that's going to outlive us all. You know, I want it to be a model for the rest of the country, and how we create that is what we're trying to start right now. So as we do that, it's not going to look exactly the same, but the whole point is giving residents a place at the table. And that's been my mission from day one. Day one is making sure that while it may not mean that you get exactly what you want, doesn't mean that residents are always going to get it, but as long as you're at the table and understanding why decisions are made, or what the other point of view is, that's what we as city council, or the city in general, city staff, city council should be doing. I feel it's education and conversation. So that's really the forefront of it. It doesn't mean that everything's going to be perfect in the first month, in the first 2 months. It was dismantled real quickly in 2020, and that's a whole infrastructure that was gone. So please bear with us. Please know that as the former chair, I have the best intentions for CACs as we move forward. And you are always welcome to contact me with questions, and I will always be transparent with you to let you know where we stand in the process and what the future is holding for us. So I think we got all the points that you brought up. Do I have any questions about anything else that's happening on council? I'm sorry, I have an ice cream, so please forgive me. I don't want it to melt. Any questions?
Any questions?
All right. Well, my email is christina.jones@raleighnc.gov. I'm on social media platforms, on Instagram, Facebook. I'm not on Twitter, but I'll work on that. So if you have any questions, never hesitate to reach out. I'm more than happy to have a conversation and help you see the way what I am seeing, and have a conversation about it. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Christina, while you're online for my membership, just to let everybody know, we've achieved our biggest hurdle, and that was the recognition of the CACs. Even I recognize that's only the first step. We've got to find a way to partner with the city, and I'm not sure myself what that's going to look like. It has to be something unique, because CACs are unique. There is, as far as I know, nobody else working with the city that does what we do. So it's going to take a unique resolution. It's going to take a unique relationship, and we are working on it as we go. So I'll keep you up to date as best I can. And I expect by March, when we meet, there probably will be an update, I would expect.
I do have a meeting. I do have a meeting with Robert Rice as of in March. So it might be April, because he's meeting with you guys. I think there's a retreat happening, and there's a lot of stuff of questions that are what does this look like? How does this relationship look? And some ideas that are not finalized, but that I've thrown out are, if we can treat CACs like a board or commission and have a liaison, then it's a liaison speaking to, so it's not you having to speak to 8 different counselors it's you speaking to one, and council speaking to a representative, so that conversation gets filtered both ways. So that's just an idea. It's not something that's been finalized, but it's something that I threw out into the mix. I do want to just go over the 3 points that were in the motion, because this was worked on with our CAC. These are motions that were brought by them, by our CAC, that we were able to amplify. So this was not council. We talked about community centers. That's number 1. That was the number 1 ask. And that's growing. The second motion, part of the motion, was Zoom access. So we heard you loud and clear. I did just get my first city Zoom stuff. So I think that's going to be rolling out very soon, very shortly, as that just happened last week. So I think they're trying to figure out how this is going to work out. So I'll keep you updated on that. And then the third was what I talked about before, which was connecting the RNC and CLA class to ensure that future leaders had a connection. And now, how do we teach them about CACs? How does that become part of the class so that ongoing education is possible? My goal for the class, I would love for there to be like a Raleigh University and have all these classes. They used to have a police academy, they have a planning academy, and these are all free to the public. So if you are interested in learning about these things, please go to the website and look up Raleigh Neighborhood College, Citizens Leadership Academy, or Planning Academy. And those are our 3 current classes. I'd love to grow that so that residents can do and learn about things like Our sewer system, that was the first presentation, which I loved. And you can learn some more. So those are the three motions as of right now. And we know different asks will happen in the future as we grow as an organization. We have, I think, about 6 active, maybe 7 active CACs right now. So how do we fold in new leadership, and how do we make them part of these 6 or 7 CACs, and then grow that, and then they're ready for that leadership in our defunct CACs, which was about half, a little over half that are not actively participating right now. So it's a long process, and I'm really, really excited to work with the RCAC team. Having had that history of being part of CACs for so long, definitely want to continue that conversation. So thank you guys so much, CAC leadership, and thank you guys for being such a huge support. We've received a lot of thank yous, and I really do think that it's important for residents to feel heard.
David?
Yeah, I was just curious, has there been any discussion at all about redoing the CACs, or at least some of the reforms take place, like having CACs be all roughly the same size, representing roughly the same number of people, being roughly compact? I mean, because some CACs were very, very small, and some, like, I think it was Northwest was huge. I know North CAC is huge. Any chance that any kind of the reforms are going to take place that people talked about before they were disbanded?
Can I step in? Christina, can I jump in here? Just
Please, yeah, go ahead.
First thing has to happen is to get CACs back up on the city website, so everybody is informed of where they are, where you reside, and which CAC you belong to. And then, yes, there's a general recognition, even for me, that our CAC covers a big area compared to some of the others. So yes, go ahead, Christina.
Sure. And as was discussed, before I got onto council, I sat on the community engagement task force with McKeithburn for about a year. And I think the biggest thing that I learned from that is that we have 28 community centers. And at the time, we only had 18 CACs. So right there, we had 10 community centers without representation. So the thought right now, and it's in discussion of how do we really activate those community centers, and it becoming out at Laurel Hill CAC or 5 Points CAC, so that it's really auditory. Oh, I live close to 5 Points, I'm part of that. And now that doesn't, the problem that does for us is that your outer areas, your Northwest, your North that you pointed out, David, they don't have as many community centers. So you've got Briar Creek Community Center that services a lot. And so those are some of the challenges that, again, we're just starting. So I don't know that that's something we're going to solve right away. But to give some of the areas, whether it's north at Abbott's Creek or northwest at Briar Creek and Lynn Road, it's giving them some more options just to begin. And we can keep a temperature check on how it goes as we continue to grow. But trying to fold in all the thoughts that have happened over the last few years of what we can grow into is definitely part of the conversation.
Yeah, like I said, for me, getting everything back up on the city website is number 1. And then 2, the ability to get mass mailing availability will help us get that type of question out there, David. And I think, yes, in the future, I think you will see a change to better reflect a better distribution of CACs through Raleigh.
I think it's important that we have a frank discussion about problems that may have been related to the CAC in the past. I see there are 8 Zoom participants and maybe a dozen or more people at the room. So we have 20 or 30 self-selected people at this CAC meeting, and I do not accept this represents our population whatsoever. And I would be, I really appreciate people's concern and being there and sincerity, but I would hate to see the CACs evolve into something that becomes a roadblock and increased costs and puts forth narrow perspectives as opposed to what we elect the city council to do, is to look after everybody.
Yeah, I don't see that.
That may not be a popular viewpoint to express, but it's I think it's important to express.
Can I take that one, Larry, if you don't mind?
Go ahead.
So what I think I hear you saying is referencing the rezonings of the past, because that's where I think a lot of the questions came in and the doubt came into CACs. But I would like to remind everyone about that, even when it existed, that none of those votes were binding. None of that was. It was just to get a segment of a population to understand how they felt. Just like when you went to the planning commission, that was not binding. The council can decide to go with planning or against planning, and it was the same thing for CACs. So in the past, that was never, well, while it may have felt that way, it was never a requirement for council to follow through with what CACs or planning commission had to say. And to calm maybe some of the fears, we did not include zoning in that. We encourage zoning. We said, hey, developers, we would love for you to go to your CACs, and they do. I mean, I've been to many CACs that are still operating and functioning that do have developers that go there and present, because they do want that feedback. But I do want to make sure that even though it isn't, let's say Northwest, which was mine, which is 90,000 people. No, we didn't get the feedback from 90,000 people every month. But it is still important for those who showed up that their voice does matter. And whether or not that's actually carried through with council is council's decision. And it was never a requirement. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that, because I do think that was a hard thing to wrap our heads around as it was all happening 4 years ago.
And I'm just going to
This
close
is David.
on-
I'm gonna gently push back and just point out that some of your predecessors, I'm thinking of David Cox and Steph Mendel, basically used those CACs up north as anti-housing platforms, anti-development groups. They led them, they spoke often, they made their viewpoints known, they painted pictures the way they wanted them presented. It was awful. It was absolutely awful. So, I mean, there was, as somebody else has expressed, there's reasons to have concern when you have council members showing up at CACs and explaining why a development is bad to the people attending. It was highly inappropriate in several cases.
Yeah, and the flip side to that is that now we have zoning cases that have like 2 people representing. So I don't know, the question that I've pushed back on, especially in our District C area where we have active gentrification happening, and I say you had 2 people at your neighborhood rezoning meeting, and the pushback is, oh, well, that's consensus. So I think there was stuff on both sides. It was not just on the CAC side, but I do hear your concerns, and we are trying to make sure that those are recognized in this new iteration. And as we've done that, we have not required right now developers to go to rezoning cases with CACs.
And I'm just going to say that we will continue to do as we've done in the past. When we have a rezoning that's of merit for the area, we will definitely bring them in front of the CAC audience. And let me also say, we have a mailing list of 200 people that I send out regularly. Of those 200 people, I may get back a half a dozen responses. Okay, that's just an indication of the public. We have 50,000 within our CAC. I can't reach 50,000 people. That's up to the city to try to do. I can't do that. I can reach my 200. I can encourage my 200 to respond. And I am thankful that we at least have an average attendance of 30, 40 people. We are doing very well that way. While it doesn't seem like it compared to other CACs, we are doing very well. And we are one of the few CACs that does a hybrid format where we have active participation in person and we have virtual participation. I think it's unique to us, but there may be a few others that I'm not aware of. So just leaving it on that note. And before we go any further, that reminds me, with Linda in the audience, Linda, where will we be in March?
I'm still trying to confirm that, but should have an answer within weeks.
Okay, because at some point they are going to start the sewer work.
No, I can probably, or you can hear me a little better. All right, so we do have a little bit of an update on the sewer line repair here. We don't have exact dates yet, but they are going to be able to maintain at least one roadway in and out of the park here at Eastgate. So that will allow us to still get in and out of the park. So if you're using the tennis courts or anything like that, you will still be able to get in and out. It will still impact about half of the parking spaces. So our parking will be drastically limited, which is hard since we're already a limited parking lot. But we don't know exactly what dates it will impact the actual water access to the building. So that's where we're still trying to narrow down that time frame. So our facilities and ops crew has been able to go from a longer time period of not having a roadway access and losing the whole parking lot and sewer line access to the building to we only lose half the driveway for part of that time. And we just have to narrow down when they're gonna lose sewer line access. So they're still trying to narrow down exactly when all that's gonna happen. But we will have a space for you guys either here or at Millbrook. We've reserved both buildings so that once we know for sure, we'll let you guys know. So that Millbrook is y'all's backup location for next month's meeting, if this building is not going to be available. So
Thank
I will host you in one of my two buildings.
Nice, Linda. All right, we pushed out a lot of information tonight, very successfully, and kudos to all the presenters. I think we gained quite a bit from it. So if there is nothing further, or if there's any question, are there any questions, anything of concern from the audience? Hearing none, I'm gonna let y'all go for the night. And oh, by the way, shopping carts. Down here, they have a braking system where you get so many feet from the store and that shopping cart locks up. So unless they throw it in a car, it's not going anywhere. Take care. Yeah, take care. Have a great experience, have a great week, and see y'all.